Nearshoring has seemingly accelerated in the post-COVID years, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Freight has been crossing the Mexico-US border for many years, and it requires specialized solutions and partners to make that cross-border journey as successful and painless as possible. Today, we're going to tell that story. Hello, and welcome to today's session, Optimizing Cross-Border Freight Operations. I'm your host, Brian Straight. I'm an editor with Peerless Media, which includes Logistics Management Magazine, and I'm pleased to be hosting this discussion. Today's event is being sponsored by Werner. As I mentioned, cross-border freight is not new, and Werner has been successfully moving customer goods across the border since 1999. Joining us today to discuss the history of Werner Mexico is Lance Dixon, Senior Vice President of Mexico, Canada, Temperature Control Divisions for Werner. Lance is going to discuss how Werner has evolved to meet customer needs by simplifying cross-border freight movement and revolutionizing the journey across the border. But before I turn things over to Lance, I'd like to let you know that you may submit questions for him at any time during the course of this event, and we'll answer some of those at the end of the main presentation. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to all of you that have taken time out of your day to listen to this presentation today. Both of us greatly appreciate it. Now, I'd like to welcome in Lance Dixon. Lance, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Brian. I'm pleased to be here today, and it's my pleasure. Let me start, I guess, with just a little bit about myself. So I started in the transportation industry in 1989 in the LTL sector. I've been at Werner about 32 years, started as a customer service manager, and in 1999, I was tapped to help start our Mexico operations. As we established in 1999, we continued to upgrade and innovate and evolved to our customers' needs. What started with a handful of associates and one office has now grown to 4 offices in Mexico, that being Guadalajara, Mexico City, Querétaro, and Monterrey. We have over 100 associates in the country of Mexico. We have another 25 associates or so at the border that assist and facilitate moves to and from Mexico. And then we have another 15 or so associates in Omaha, and those folks primarily are focused on sending southbound into Mexico. We also own 2 terminals at the border today, one in Laredo and one in El Paso, and we cross at 12 unique border crossings on the southern border. That evolution today has, what started as simply dry van services, which was a trailer that loaded in Omaha, Nebraska, is the exact same trailer that unloaded in Mexico City, has now evolved. Today, we not only do dry van service, but we also do temperature control or reefer services. We do pure brokerage into and out of Mexico. We do power only services, which is a Werner trailer and a non-Werner asset truck on the front. We do intermodal services to and from Mexico. And we have a state-of-the-art 21-door cross-dock facility in Laredo also. I think now would be a great time to see that short video. Could you cue that up for us, Brian? So we began operations in Mexico in 1999, and around 2001, we began to build the terminal and finish that terminal out in that calendar year. It was a year or 2 later, we started the open air cross-dock facility, which was 6 doors, 3 on each side, roof, but open air facility. Today, we've transitioned into a new, completely climate controlled, fully enclosed facility. It's got 21 doors, 13 of which are dry, 8 are temperature controlled, and that facility is about 17,500 square feet. We built it because customers were asking for a solution to their problem, and the problem was really northbound, and they just weren't getting enough capacity, trailer capacity mostly, in country of Mexico to support their northbound volumes. They didn't specifically ask for a cross-dock, they asked for a solution to their problem. This was the solution. I think the cross-dock facility is really important to our customers for 2 reasons. One is flexibility. It allows us to transfer freight from a Mexican carrier trailer to a Werner trailer, or from a Werner trailer to a third-party logistics trailer. And so that flexibility becomes important. From the point of pickup to the point of delivery, we can reduce that time down when we have flexibility. And so speed to market's important to our customers. And I think that the cross-dock fills both of those items, and it allows us to serve the customer better. I think some of the important elements to our cross-dock facility, and I think some of the things that'll impress our customers if they were to visit, is actually the process that we have. It's very formal. It's very documented. Every trailer that comes in is documented. Every seal number that is broken is documented. Every new trailer that the product is put in is documented. And so there is a very clear chain of custody. Werner's cross-dock facility in Laredo is unique for this reason. It's inside of our terminal. Most of the other warehousing and cross-docking operations, even if there's another carrier operating them, they're at an alternative site. This is within our facility. It's within our scope, and therefore we have very clear chain of custody, who's in control, when they're in control, where the trailer is, and that's important to our customers. That's where the difficulty comes in terms of trucks and trailers coming in. Everything is checked, paperwork, documentation is all checked prior to the truck arriving to the cross-dock facility. But once it hits a cross-dock facility, things really move pretty quickly. You know, the customers that are flexible enough and willing to try something a little bit different have been giving us great feedback. They often tour the facility prior to startup. They can see the whole documentation process. They can see how it works. Once they see how it works, they really become very comfortable with that whole transloading concept. So we started with assets 25 years ago. Then we started doing some cross-docking with some logistics partners. Today we do intermodal, we do temperature control all the way to and from Mexico. We do peer brokerage. We do power only off the border. So the cross-dock is one of those things that has allowed us to round out those service offerings. And as long as customers are flexible to using different modes and these different services, that's going to be key to their success going forward.
Okay, I think that video does a really nice job of showcasing the cross-dock facility that we have in Laredo, Texas. You know, we've been able to grow with our customers because we're customer centric. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about nearshoring. It's kind of the hot topic today. So I'd love to take that one for just a few minutes. So we're in the early stages of nearshoring. If you look at foreign direct investment over the last 2 or 3 years, it's hit a record every single year. So the monies are committed. So that's a good thing. But it takes a bit of time after monies are committed. There has to be a site selection by the customer, site prep. Then there's infrastructure that they have to pull in. So think, you know, roads, water, sewer, electric, communication / data lines. All that stuff has to happen before they even start building a facility. So then they build a facility. They have to place the machinery inside the facility. They have to hire and train associates. And all that has to happen before anything that's manufactured comes out the back doors. And that process, if it's on a very tight schedule, will take about 24 months or 2 years. So we're in the early innings of nearshoring. I think because the monies are committed, it's real, it's happening. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where this goes over the next decade or so. The current customers that we have that are taking advantage of nearshoring are those that are already established inside of Mexico. And so all they need to do to ramp is hire a second and or maybe a third shift. And so they're coming on board much, much faster than the new entrants into the nearshoring concept. All of this activity, however, exacerbates the already existing northbound, southbound imbalance problem, with there being more northbound coming into the United States than there is southbound going from the United States into Mexico. So you might ask yourself, well, how do we solve that problem? What's Werner doing to try to help mitigate those issues around that shortage perhaps that's happening in Mexico? And we do this in a number of different ways. One, if we have some areas in Mexico are consuming areas, meaning that they consume a lot more product than they actually manufacture or send out. So you get an imbalance in that particular market. So what we do in that case is we'll maybe move an empty trailer from one market to a neighboring market to try to help on alleviating some of that pain that's happening on the other markets. The other thing we do, we load Mexican carrier trailers, and then we use that cross-dock that we just featured. We also secure additional capacity through our logistics team that's based in Laredo, Texas, and that's our pure brokerage move, where we're hiring an outside carrier both on the Mexico side and on the U.S. side, but it's supplemental capacity for our customers and helps alleviate any pain that they may have when they're not finding the capacity they need for their northbound volumes. You know, and then lastly, I would say that we offer intermodal services. And so I think that's one of the bright shining moments for Werner is that we offer multiple different service or transportation solutions versus just kind of being a one trick pony, so to speak. And so I think that's what sets us apart. It's our experience and our excellent service that set us apart. Regulations are always changing. We try to keep up on those the best we can. And I think the key to keeping up with the new regulation is communication. That solves most of these problems before they ever become a problem. So we're in always close communication with both customers and our Mexican carriers, and that's the key to success. Recently there was a new regulation put in Mexico. It's called Cartaporte, which is a document that the Mexican carriers must present to Mexican customs prior to arriving at the border. And that has to be presented to the Mexican carrier by the shipper. So before that came on board, we were having meetings with each and every one of our customers, explaining the new regulation, explaining what that document needed to look like, what information needed to be included in that document, and that they had to present that to the Mexican carrier prior to their arrival at the border so that they could get pre-cleared. Once loads pre-clear or get cleared by U.S. Customs, things move along very, very quickly. Another area that we pride ourselves on is nearly all of our Mexican carriers are CTPAT certified. CTPAT is a program that's implemented by the U.S. Homeland Security. It was implemented after 9/11, and it just basically it shows to become certified or validated, you have to have written policies and procedures in place, and you have to show that you're complying with those written policies and procedures. And most all of those policies and procedures are around safety and security, which can be an issue in Mexico from time to time. So we make sure that all of our Mexican carriers have CTPAT certification. That helps assure security along the traveled routes and those sorts of things. We tailor most of our service to meet our customers' needs, to be honest. As we began to celebrate our 25 years of serving Mexico, we've come a long way from just being a dry van, cross-border dry van service provider to now, doing temperature control services, brokerage services, power-only services, intermodal services, and that cutting-edge cross-dock facility that we've already seen the short video on. So I think it's our experience and our relationships with our customers and our Mexican carrier partners that have been instrumental to our success over the last 25 years. I'd also be a little bit remiss if I just didn't give a big thank you out to all of our customers, Mexican carriers that have made this success possible for us over the last 25 years. It's been a great journey, not only for me personally, but for Werner Enterprises. I'm excited to see where nearshoring goes in the next 10 years or so. And I think Werner's got a very, very bright future ahead of it in terms of cross-border services that we offer. Brian, I think you had some questions maybe queued up also.
Yeah, thank you, Lance. Terrific little presentation there. I loved learning a little bit about Werner's history with Mexico and how it's evolved. And I think the points about nearshoring are so accurate, right? I mean, we're really only in the baseball enthusiasts in the early innings of this and what's taking place there. So it's so great to understand that a little bit. We do have a few questions from the audience. We'll get to those in just a moment. As a reminder to those of you listening out there, you can submit questions for this Q&A with Lance. There is still time that you can do that right now. Please use the Q&A button on your dashboard to submit those questions. So Lance, if you don't mind, let's get to a few of those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah. So our first one comes in, and they want to know, what are the key operational challenges in cross-border freight that Werner's cross-dock solutions address?
Yeah, the video talked a little bit about this already, but I can, re-hit some of these points, because I do think that they're important. The cross-dock itself, at a very, very high level, it mitigates shipping delays. And it helps mitigate some of that northbound, southbound imbalance that I referenced a little bit earlier. So, the cross-dock solution really reduces delays and it increases speed to market. And I think that's what's really important to customers. They don't need to experience delays. They don't need to have these issues, we take care of those as the carrier. We do our best to provide the best on-time service to our customers, and it becomes seamless to them. And that's our jobs. That's what we get paid to do, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and speed to customer is so important. When you look at consumer surveys, right, of things they buy, things they find in stores, it's getting the stuff that they want is so important. And it's especially true in manufacturing, which needs the products, needs the materials there. So regardless of what you're hauling in, speed is important there. So
certainly.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit briefly, but regulations. So regulations always a hot topic, and you talked a little bit about some of the things. So the next question, addresses that. How does Werner ensure compliance with customs and border regulations through its solutions?
Yeah. So beyond those relationships with our customers and Mexican carriers, when I was referencing the new Carta Porte rule and regulation, beyond those relationships, we also have very sound relationships with U.S. Customs, CBP, ICE, local authorities at these border ports. Matter of fact, there's one of them in Laredo, one of those agencies, I won't name them, but they actually come onto our facility once a month and train. And so they're training up new agents and how they do that. That's how deep of a relationship that we have with these folks. And I think that's important. We are able to solve most of our customers' problems or potential problems before they actually ever become an actual problem. And I think these types of relationships that we have with the governmental agencies also help. If they can help us through this, they can help move things through the process faster. We know what we're perhaps doing wrong. We can fix that immediately. And so just beyond the customer and Mexican carrier relationships, I think those relationships are also equally as important.
Yeah, I think as I got started in the freight industry, on the media side, obviously about 20 years ago, everybody told me it's like relationships. It's relationships, right? and now the last 5 years, it's technology, but relationships don't go away. Still
That's right.
Part of it. Yeah. I'm glad to see this next question come in because this has been something, it wasn't really specifically addressed in the presentation, but it is a big topic been going on, especially in social media, and that's about cargo theft. So the question they have is, what measures should a carrier have in place for security to avoid cargo theft? And because that's become a much bigger issue, it seems, in recent years.
Yeah. And that's all true, by the way. That's unfortunately true. I talked a little bit about some of those, and I'll take a little bit deeper dive in here. But making sure that your carriers, both U.S. carrier and Mexican carrier, are CTPAT validated. That's that U.S. Homeland Security program that I had talked about. That helps. Obviously, having good relationships, whether you're hiring the Mexican carrier directly or you're doing it through your U.S. carrier, understanding who that Mexican carrier is and having some sort of relationship with them, if at all possible, is important. And so those types of things, again, it's about that. We just talked about the relationships, right? And it's kind of all about that. There's a number of other things that we do. We make sure that our Mexican carriers are using the toll roads versus the free roads. The toll roads are more patrolled by law enforcement, therefore safer. And so that's a requirement of ours that we place on our Mexican carriers that, hey, listen, you're going to be using toll roads 100% of the time. No free roads, all of that. Then we work with our shippers and say, things like, hey, if at all possible, please ship allowing the carriers to operate in daylight hours. It's overnight that things get a little wonky. And so if we can provide a level of security to these drivers and to their cargo by making sure it's moved in the daylight hours, that helps a lot. And so those are a few things, CTPAT, daytime shipping, know your carriers, work with an experienced company. That's another one where I think Werner shines. We've been in this game for 25 years. We don't longer practice. We're masters. And so if you're going to team up with someone to provide cross-border transportation services, be sure you're partnering with someone that has some experience in this, multiple years. They understand how it operates. They understand the hurdles and challenges that will be placed in front of them at different points along the way. And so I think those are important.
Yeah. I as you were answering that, the toll road thing to me is interesting. Obviously, I don't know enough about moving stuff within Mexico, but the idea that toll road adds a little cost, but much safer.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting to me. We have time for one more question. To our audience, if you submitted a question and we haven't answered it, we'll forward that to Lance and his team for follow-up in the days ahead, so you can look for something from them on that. If you still want to ask a question, we won't be able to get to it today, but we will make sure we forward that to Lance. So you can still ask one now if you want to get something in. Please do that now in the time remaining, and we'll make sure that Lance and his team get all the questions that you guys have submitted and get you answers to those things. So Lance, for our final question, we want to address partnerships. And the question is, how important is it that a carrier like Werner have partnerships in Mexico when moving freight across the border?
Yeah, at risk of repeating myself, it's extremely important, number one. And second off, those relationships and partnerships they're instrumental to making sure that everything goes smooth, both in Mexico and the United States. But, Mexico's got a little bit, we talked a little bit about it, but we want to make sure that our customers' products are safe and secure and free of delays. And so those partnerships with Mexican carriers are important. I think we have about 83 different Mexican carriers under interchange. And I would tell you that probably 50% of those have been with us 20 years or longer. So we have very sound relationship with them. They understand our expectations. We know their strengths and weaknesses. There are markets that they're stronger in or less strong in some markets, and we try to play them to their strength. For example, if they're a carrier that's based in Mexico City, well, then the loads that go to Mexico City, are more likely to end up on them because that's playing to their strength, and vice versa. If we have a carrier that's Monterey based, then they'll be more than likely be the carrier we use on that. So we try to play those carriers to our strength, and those partnerships and relationships evolve over time. They're never immediate. And so it takes many, many years to get comfortable with each other, know each other, understand each other, what strengths and weaknesses are, and all of that. So, that's another area I think that we shine, that our partners have been with us for many, many years. And, that speaks volumes to the relationship that we have with them.
Yeah. Thank you, Lance. Great discussion. It's so funny. I've had so many conversations over the years with people who move freight across the border, carriers, 3PLs, et cetera. And every time I do, I learn something new about it. It's such a broad and complicated process. So it's great. It's great companies like Werner are out there making it a little bit easier for the shippers and whatnot to get their freight across the border if need be. So want to thank you for your time today and sharing your expertise. That is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank our guest, Lance Dixon, for joining us today, and our sponsor for today's event, Werner, for enabling us to bring this content to you. A special thank you, obviously, to all of you out there who took time to listen to us today. We greatly appreciate it. For Peerless Media, I'm Brian Straight. Thank you for listening.